And it goes down.
Now it's time for Toker Talk Radio, the voice of the marijuana nation.
What are you people? On dope?
Where you can toke.
I inhale frequently.
Or you can talk.
I experimented with marijuana and didn't inhale.
Or you can toke and talk.
10 federal criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana.
While we talk about toke on Toker Talk Radio.
So, by the way, when it comes to pot, if you're 40 years old, you live in a log cabin in Oregon, you got 12 giant pot plants in your backyard, have a ball.
Live from beautiful Portland, Oregon at Rolla J Studios.
Hey, this is great. Just not cannabis.
Plus your calls live at 971-533-7111.
They're walking on their pants with their cap on backwards, listening to Enema Man and Snoopy Poop Dog.
What's to keep somebody from getting all potted up on weed and then getting behind the wheel? Gateway theory doesn't work. It's a reality.
Holland, is it real? Don't tease me.
We're locking up people that take a couple of puffs of marijuana, and the next thing you know, they got 10 years.
And now, here's your host, the guru of ganja graphics, the sultan of sativa statistics, and the worst nightmare of a reefer mad prohibitionist. A polite, perspicacious, productive pothead with a propensity for PowerPoint. Radical Russ Belville.
Welcome back, everybody, to After the Hour, 4 o'clock here in the Pacific time zone. And I've set Budcam back up. It's now the new handheld Budcam. And so I'm playing a game here. Name that magnified thing. Currently, those of you watching the replay are live on the video window at 420radio.org or ustream.tv can see in my video window something magnified. You just have to guess what it is, and there's no prize. It's just if you're in the chat room and can guess what that magnified thing is, you win the internet, I think. So there it is. Guess this magnified thing. See what else I can show you about the magnified thing. This is great radio, huh? Anyway, thank you for being here for Toker Talk Radio. I'm Radical Russ. Gothic Prophet says it looks like a gear of some sort. Jam Band Fan says it's a dial. There we go. Big Daddy Fink wins. It's a lighter. That's right. A lighter. You are the winner. Congratulations. Oh, you deserve better than that. I wish I had something better than that for you, though. Can't find it. Got to fix a whole bunch of things here in the studio. And just pulling my hair out over it. It's just crazy. Yes. Anyway, welcome to Toker Talk Radio. On the show today, I have got some interesting stories to bring to you in the cannabis community, as well as taking your calls here at 971-533-7111. And one story that's coming up in science, we'll talk to Dr. Mitch about this as well. A new systematic review in the official journal of the American Academy of Neurology examined the efficacy and safety of medical marijuana in selected neurologic disorders. Now, their objective was to determine the efficacy of medical marijuana in the treatment of several neurologic conditions. They performed a systematic review of medical marijuana studies from 1948 through November of 2013 that addressed the treatment of multiple sclerosis, epilepsy, and movement disorders. Now, of all the studies from 1948 to 2013, 34 studies met their inclusion criteria, and of those 34, 8 studies were rated as Class 1. I don't know what Class 1 is. My assumption is it's the best study you can get. So their conclusions were, number 1, patients with MS, right, dealing with multiple sclerosis, for spasticity, oral cannabis extract, or OCE, or Sativex is what we're talking about. For spasticity, they found that Sativex is effective, and both nabiximols, and I don't know what a nabiximol is, and tetrahydrocannabinol, I know what that is, THC, are probably effective for reducing patient-centered measures. So, right there, Journal of the American Academy of Neurology is saying that THC is probably effective for reducing spasticity. They also say it is possible both Sativex and THC are effective for reducing both patient-centered and objective measures at 1 year. So it continues to work. Second conclusion. Central pain or painful spasms, including spasticity-related pain, but excluding neuropathic pain, Sativex is effective. THC is probably effective. Now, why are they saying is effective for Sativex and probably effective for marijuana or THC? Well, my guess is that in the studies that they're looking at, right? If it's a study where it's GW Pharmaceuticals running Sativex trials, they're running, double-blind, placebo-controlled, class 1, best of possible trials. Whereas when you're looking at the studies of medical marijuana, THC use for multiple sclerosis is probably not as tight a study because it's a Schedule 1 drug. So these researchers, my guess, is that they hedge their bet a little by saying probably. And they probably want to say more than probably is my guess. So they say number 2, central pain or painful spasms, spasticity-related pain, but excluding neuropathic pain, Sativex is effective, THC is probably effective. Number 3, urinary dysfunction. Now, this is something where multiple sclerosis patients have some incontinence problem, right, with the bladder. Nabiximols is probably effective for reducing bladder voids per day, but THC and Sativex are probably ineffective. So, folks, marijuana can't cure everything. Not going to help with the bladder problem. 4, tremors. Both THC and Sativex are probably ineffective. Nabiximols is possibly ineffective. So didn't do much for the tremor as far as the studies they reviewed. And number 5, for other neurologic conditions, they say that Sativex is probably ineffective for certain dyskinesias for patients with Parkinson's. Oral cannabinoids are of unknown efficacy for symptoms of Huntington's disease, Tourette's syndrome, cervical dystonia, and epilepsy. The risks and benefits of medical marijuana should be weighed carefully. Risk of serious adverse psychopathologic effects was nearly 1%. So 99 out of 100 times that the people used medical marijuana, they didn't have a severe adverse reaction. They also note that comparative effectiveness of medical marijuana versus other therapies is unknown for these indications. And again, what that tells us is we just need to legalize it so it can be studied and proven.
The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at RadicalRuss.com.
When you are starting up a medical cannabis business, you don't just want any attorney. You want a fired-up lawyer who understands the needs of cannabis consumers. The law office of Lauren Vasquez is your fired-up lawyer for the cannabis industry. Lauren Vasquez knows the details of California marijuana law from both a personal and professional angle. Lauren Vasquez rose from the ranks of college normal activist to become one of the Bay Area's best marijuana lawyers. Visit her website, fireduplawyer.com, or call 1-855-MMJ-LAWS for more information. That's 855-665-5297 for Lauren Vasquez, your fired-up lawyer, or email firedupLawyer@gmail.com. The number again is 855-MMJ-LAWS, 855-665-5297 for your fired-up lawyer, Lauren Vasquez. Lauren Vasquez is an activist attorney you can trust. Call today. 420 Radio, the world's voice of marijuana legalization. Hey, Tokers and Tokettes, Radical Russ here to introduce you to my friend Matt and all the staff at Lush LED Lighting. Growing plants indoors can be a rewarding hobby, but electricity bills can go through the roof. Then you have to cool down all those big hot lights. It can drive a grower insane. With Lush LED Lighting, you can solve many of these issues and double your rewards. If you thought LEDs were meet the tech of today, Matt and his scientists have developed the perfect light for flowering plants with far less cost and heat. And the results? Let's just say I appear at a lot of events with the masters of indoor horticulture, and the harvests I saw from Lush LED lighting were big, tight, sticky, and very effective. Check out LushLEDlighting.com right now and tell them Radical Russ sent you. Double your rewards and lower your expenses with Lush LED lighting.
When I was young, everything seemed possible. Someone took that away, and I feel afraid.
Welcome back, everybody. 11 after the hour. That's Fiberglass Heartthrob with Need to Get High. You're listening to Toker Talk Radio here on 420radio.org, live and direct from beautiful Potland, Oregon. And I mean beautiful. Did some lawn work today. It's supposed to be getting into the 80s outside. It's sunny, and I'm here in the studio. Oh my goodness, it's a fantastic day today. But I'm glad to be here with you because we're all in this together, fighting in this war on certain American citizens using non-pharmaceutical, non-alcoholic, tobacco-free drugs. And in the latest development in that war, we're going to talk about the people who fight the real wars, the shooting wars. Well, not that the war on drugs isn't a shooting war or a real war, but you know what I mean? You know, war. And that's our veterans. The veterans who we promise to, honor and respect, and we give them 2 holidays, and we supposedly, they're the best guys in the world, and they're fighting for our freedom, and yet the way our government treats them and the way we treat them when they come back and what they go through is just embarrassing and dishonoring and sad. And there's many angles on that story. You can talk about veteran homelessness and, mental trauma and all sorts of things. But one of the things that's really frustrating about this is our knowledge of how much medical marijuana can help veterans. How many veterans live in now 21 states that approve of the use or allow the use of medical marijuana. And yet these veterans can't talk with their VA doctors about medical marijuana. That blows my mind. Veterans, hell, that probably smoked marijuana, some of them in Vietnam, in Iraq, Afghanistan, there's plenty of it there. Probably who could use medical marijuana to deal with the symptoms of post-traumatic stress. For those who've lost limbs, it's great for neuropathic pain, those phantom pains. There's for traumatic brain injury, for concussion, for these guys that have lost, had to relearn how to walk and eat and dress themselves. And we know that marijuana can help deal with the after effects of concussion and the after effects of traumatic brain injury. So it's cruel enough that it's denied in 29 states that still don't recognize medical marijuana. But in the states that do recognize medical marijuana, the veterans can't even talk to their doctors about it at the VA. Now, there has been progress on that front as far as Veterans for Medical Cannabis Access, Michael Kravitz and those folks who have at least gotten to the point where the veterans don't have to choose between their pain contract and their medical marijuana in a legal state, in a medical marijuana state. That used to be the rule as well. Well, the VA will give you your OxyContin or your Vicodin, but not if you're on medical marijuana. You got to choose. And there's just some pain that's so intense, medical marijuana is not going to be enough. You're going to need an opioid, but you need less of that opioid if you can also supplement it with medical marijuana. So again, a policy that forces our veterans to make a more dangerous choice. So I'm proud to say that my representative, Earl Blumenauer, Democrat from Oregon, introduced an amendment that would have changed the Military Construction, Veterans Affairs, and Regulated Agencies Appropriations Act, basically a Veterans Act, right? He introduced an amendment that would have allowed those VA doctors to talk to their patients about medical marijuana. Now, it wouldn't have allowed them to recommend. They couldn't sign the state medical marijuana card, the form. They couldn't get them any medical marijuana. This was just an amendment to say, hey, you got a veteran. He's in Oregon. He's in California. He's in New Mexico. He's in one of these 21 states. He wants to perhaps seek a medical marijuana recommendation there in that state through a different doctor. Can he mention that? Can he talk about that with his VA doctor? No. Can't even talk about it. Can't even bring it up. That's all he wanted to do. All that Blumenauer's amendment would have done is just allow a VA doctor to mention, to discuss medical marijuana. Well, it was voted down. It lost on a 225 to 195 vote. Lost by 30 votes. Or if you look at it another way, it lost by flipping. If you flipped 16 votes, you'd win that. And Blumenauer says there were some absent members who, had they been there, they would have, probably pushed the vote total to 200. There were 22 Republicans who joined the 173 Democrats who voted for it. There were 18 Democrats who joined the other Republicans who voted against it. So, when it comes to partisanship on this, yeah, more Democrats voted for it, but not all of them. Now, according to the Veterans Administration, as many as 20% of soldiers who recently served in Iraq and Afghanistan wars have post-traumatic stress. That's 1 out of 5. How many people did we have there? I hesitate to guess how many people have served. 500,000? 1 million? 1.5? Anybody know? Exactly, because, so many soldiers went in for 4, 5, 6 tours. So it's hard to get a good figure on this, but I wonder how many exact individuals served in Iraq and Afghanistan. Well, whatever that is, 1 out of 5 of them. So let's take my lowball number, 500,000. All right, 100,000 people. 100,000 veterans coming back. Young people in large respect, probably in their early 20s, mid-20s, I should say. Early 30s, maybe. People with their whole lives in front of them. Suffering from an amazing, incredible, emotional, mental, spiritual scar of post-traumatic stress. Mental health issue. Not outwardly appearing hurt. Maybe they still have all their limbs. They appear healthy, never got shot or anything. But their brains, their minds just racked by this. And with the stigma that comes with mental health problems as it is. You got these 100,000, I don't know how many, you got 1 out of 5 coming back, having to battle substance abuse issues, drinking all the time, taking pills, whatever it might be. When we know that not only the marijuana, if you're going to talk, even if you want to say it's an abuse of a substance, would still be a whole lot better if they were smoking weed than popping pills or drinking. And we know medically speaking, it's good for the recovery from PTSD. Dr. Mitch says it's not his first choice. He likes the therapies, the reliving, kind of therapies and such. But so many veterans swear by that. And Dr. Uma talks to me about how, there's 5 things that marijuana does, and one of them is it helps the brain forget. And there's some things where you need the brain to forget. And when it comes to post-traumatic stress, that's what you need. There are studies now. Federal government is going to look at marijuana as a treatment for veterans with PTSD. They're going to try 5 different potencies of smoked or vaporized cannabis on 50 veterans. So we will start to get some data on this. And I do believe that you and I, most of us listening, are going to live long enough. And it's not going to have to, we're not going to have to live that much longer. 2020 even by 2020, I see the possibility of us looking back and going, oh my God, as a society, when we realized how cruel we were, not just for locking people up over getting high, but how much medicine and advancement in saving people's lives that we gave up over this culture war started by Nixon. My wall clock and my Liberator clock, about 5 seconds out of sync there. That's the fun we have when we're broadcasting live and direct. Thanks for joining us. It's 4:20 in the Pacific, and you know what that means. Be right back.
Have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. Have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. If he said he swam to China, he would sell you South Carolina. Then you know you're talking to that reefer man.
I'm Radical Russ Belville, and I want to thank you for listening to 420 Radio. We couldn't survive without you and our sponsors, and I'd like you to check out one of our prime sponsors, the National Cannabis Coalition. I've been working with NCC since June of 2012, and I'm proud to be part of the team they have assembled. National Cannabis Coalition is building the partnerships with reformers, lawmakers, and industry we need to be successful. Visit the National Cannabis Coalition website at nationalcannabiscoalition.com or the easier-to-remember ncc420.com. That's where you'll get the exclusive first look at my radical rants, as well as informative articles from the nation's top cannabis pundits. Visit ncc420.com today, and if you have your phone handy, text Russ to 420-420 to support NCC and 420 Radio. It's a free text message that helps us help you end adult marijuana prohibition. Learn more at ncc420.com, and thanks for supporting independent marijuana legalization public radio.
Let him bring in the beat.
Adam Hand of Handmade Apparel produces quality custom designs for t-shirts, hats, and other apparel. Handmade Apparel is the official design shop for 420 Radio, The Russ Belville Show, Ganja John, and Cascadia Concentrates, among many clients who rely on Adam Hand for everything from short-run custom projects to full-run clothing lines. Adam's meticulous designs are individually crafted and screened in vibrant high-definition color. Visit handmadeapparel.biz to browse the selection of handmade gear or to get a personal quote for your own designs. Handmade Apparel, a proud supporter of 420radio.org.
Let him bring in the beat.
Gordon Green's Music Planet with Gordon Green from Spain every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, and 7 p.m. GMT right here on 420radio.org.
Welcome back, everyone. 23 after the hour. Tycombe in the chat room says I look high. Do you guys think I look high? If I were high, could I do this?
Cop looks like he has seen a ghost.
I don't think so, huh? See? I'm
I'm
Radical Russ, live from beautiful Portland, Oregon. This is Entire Cities with Cop Song. So, not liking it. Had enough of cops. It was pointed out to me by a friend. I'm heading to Miami again. I'm going back to Miami. Bienvenidos a Miami. Yes, May 13th through the 20th, we're going to do another week in Florida and visit with Florida marijuana reformers. And I'll also be participating in the Florida Marijuana Conference, which is floridamarijuanaconference.com in Fort Lauderdale. So, and Fort Lauderdale's got a great airport, easy to fly into. So I hope you can join us there. Bobby Platshorn will be there. Irv Rosenfeld, one of 4 remaining federal medical marijuana patients, and possibly one of 2. There's breaking news. Well, it's not breaking, but it's past week that George McMahon and dang, I can never remember the lady's name. But they're 2 of the 4 remaining federal medical marijuana patients. Now, I know the other 2. I've met Irv Rosenfeld a number of times, and Elvie Musica lives here in Oregon, and I see her at just about every Oregon event. So I know 2 of the 4. The other 2, George and Linda, I'm going to say is her name. I think is her name. They live in Iowa. And the problem is the doctor that they've had since the 80s when they got onto this registry, this federal compassionate investigative new drug program for medical marijuana, is retiring, leaving the state, something like that. And so they are going to lose the doctor who is the key to them continuing to be on the federal medical marijuana program. And they're desperately looking for another doctor who can qualify. And I don't know what the state of that search is at this point. But if they're unable to stay on the program, that doesn't bode well for them being able to get back onto it, because I think they wouldn't be able to. Gonna have to find out more about that. And I will ask around. Maybe we can get a guest on the show to discuss it further. But should that happen, Irv in Florida and Elvie in Oregon would be the last 2 federal medical marijuana patients. Irv will be at that Florida marijuana conference. Also, Ian Steeb will be there. We'll have representatives from the National Cannabis Industries Association. We'll have, who else? Oh, yes, Mike Booten from Weed Wars, the grower from Weed Wars, also from Cannabis Nation Radio. He will be there. So lots of experts will be there. And we hope you can be there too. If you're in the Florida area, if you're in the Fort Lauderdale area, or just want to make your way to a marijuana conference. This is going to be amazing because, Florida's voting on medical marijuana as a constitutional amendment in November. And it's a pretty wide open medical marijuana. It's California style. I could say that now that it's gotten past the Attorney General. It's on the ballot because that was her complaint, is that it says for debilitating conditions, but it also says any condition a doctor wants, basically, thinks that the use of medical marijuana would outweigh the risks. Well, gosh, the use of medical marijuana outweighs the risks of just about any condition, doesn't it? In a lot of cases. So yeah, this could be a wide open medical marijuana, at least the best medical marijuana we've seen since 2008. Since 2008, all the medical marijuanas that passed in 2010 or later have all been no home grow or limited with, a 25-mile halo or a hardship exemption, right? No home grow, extremely detailed and strict condition lists. Florida would break that mold. Florida would be the first state to break out of the Box Canyon if they should pass this. Now they need 60% to be able to pass it. So I'll be there in Florida, but I'm going to head down early May 13th and then head back May 20th. We'll spend some time in South Florida and just do some shows live from a very hot and humid Florida. All right. In other news, it looks as though I may be getting my dance card filled in June. And this is breaking news that I'll be discussing later with some of the folks. I can't tell you much about it. But it's the kind of thing that might take me to New York City for a premiere of a documentary. What else was it? Let me see, look at this. It was a possibility of New York City, June 13th, Denver, June 20th, Seattle, June 27th. So I may be traveling a lot more come in June. So I'll be talking to somebody about that after the show. I'll give you the details just as soon as I know. But looks like things are on the up for 420 Radio and the Russ Belville Show. All right, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll have more from the world of news here in the cannabis community. I'm Radical Russ. Stick around.
It's simply
simply business. It's simply business, you know why they won't let us grow. It's simply business.
We'll be right back after these messages from our 420 friendly sponsors. Support these advertisers because their ad money goes straight to the Russ Belville Show. You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
It's simply business. It's simply business. It's simply business, you know why they won't let us grow. It's simply business. It's simply business, you know why they won't let us grow. It's simply business.
Marijuana, do you wanna? Mary, do you wanna tonight?
As marijuana goes mainstream, you need to be armed with the facts. Nobody can teach you better than Dr. Mitch Earlywine, Ph.D. You may know Dr. Mitch from his column in High Times magazine or his weekly appearance on the Russ Belville Show. Dr. Mitch is also the author of some of the best books on marijuana science, culture, history, and health, including Understanding Marijuana, Parents' Guide to Marijuana, Pot Politics, and more. Visit Amazon.com and search for Mitch Earlywine, that's EARLEYWINE, and order your books today. You can also contact Dr. Mitch by email at 420research@gmail.com.
Support the Russ Belville Show. Text the word Russ to 420-420 and connect with the National Cannabis Coalition. You can also send $10 to the Russ Belville Show right from your smartphone. That's Russ to 420-420. You're listening to Radical Russ on the Russ Belville Show.
I'll say little red carpet, darling, you're much too fast. Little red carpet, you need a lover that's gonna lay.
You can get 420 Radio on the go with our Shoutcast stream for all internet-enabled media players. Go to rad-r.us/420shout or just click the Shoutcast icon below the live radio feed at 420radio.org.
Time is it? It's early as hell. The fuck's calling my name? Damn, dude. Hello?
Yo, Dirty, where the hell are you, man? I'm standing here waiting for you, right where you told me to meet you. Dude. It's raining, dude. I got a handful of flyers. We gotta put this shit up.
Alright.
And the show's tomorrow night, dude.
Alright.
Are you sleeping right now?
Yeah.
Dude, man. You wanna do this rap shit or not? I mean, if you wanna make it, you gotta be playing and put the flyers up, man.
Alright.
My phone's so tired, I can't even walk. My mouth's so tired, I can't even talk. I told you before, and I'll tell you again. I'm tired of this game and all these so-called friends. I got to get out quick before I do bad shit.
Our friend the Dirt Ball from Bend, Oregon with Humblin' On. Radical Russ here at Rolla G Studios in beautiful Portland, Oregon. And shout out to Big Daddy Fink. He's got the Funky Roller Rink coming up tonight, Thursday nights, 8 p.m. Pacific time. You can get groovy with the Funky Roller Rink. We got a new edition coming up tonight. Going to be a good one. 11 Eastern time, 8 p.m. Pacific time, and replays throughout the week and on the weekends. So check out our schedule at 420radio.org. Also, shout out to Big Daddy Fink because he says, I didn't think Florida had home grow, and he is right. They do not have home grow in the Florida amendment. And I kind of, the way I phrased it, made it sound as if they did. They do not have home grow. But here's some stuff. Here's some details on the Florida constitutional amendment. It would be Article 10, Section 29, medical marijuana production, possession, and use. So they basically say the medical use of marijuana by a qualifying patient or personal caregiver is not subject to criminal or civil liability. A physician licensed in Florida shall not be subject to criminal or civil liability. Any actions conducted by a marijuana treatment center shall not be civil or criminal liability. And so here it is. The conditions. Here are the conditions. I mentioned how it'd be kind of California-like. Well, here you listen to the condition list. Debilitating medical condition means cancer, glaucoma, positive status for HIV, AIDS, Hep C, ALS, Crohn's disease, Parkinson's disease, multiple sclerosis, or other conditions for which a physician believes that the medical use of marijuana would likely outweigh the potential health risks for a patient. Let me say that last part again. Other conditions for which a physician believes the medical use of marijuana would likely outweigh the potential health risks for a patient. Wow, I can drive a truck through that. Here's one, alcoholic. Got a guy as an alcoholic. You believe that the medical use of marijuana will give him an alternative to alcohol. If he continues drinking alcohol, he's going to die, but if he uses marijuana, he shall not. So in Florida, could that be another condition for which a physician believes the medical use of marijuana would likely outweigh the potential health risks for a patient? Could we get medical marijuana in Florida for alcoholism? Now, I've been to Florida a few times now. They could use it. Florida, y'all drink too much. There's a lot of drinking in Florida. And could that be a treatment? I think so, the way that's written. Chronic pain. You got some sort of chronic pain because they don't have pain listed in here in their list of conditions. Cancer, glaucoma, HIV, AIDS, Hep C, ALS, Crohn's, Parkinson's, and MS. Ain't no pain, ain't no nausea. So you've got a retching disease, right? Vomiting disease. That's got to qualify. Certainly, medical marijuana is going to stop the nausea, right? So I think this Florida thing is pretty wide open as far as the debilitating medical condition goes. Now, they also specify that a medical marijuana treatment center means an entity that acquires, cultivates, possesses, processes, develops food products, tinctures, aerosols, oils, or ointments, transfers, transports, sells, distributes, dispenses, or administers marijuana products containing marijuana-related supplies or educational materials to qualifying patients or their personal caregivers and is registered by the department. You got to love the way they write sentences in the law, but basically they're saying there's going to be dispensaries. Dispensaries can get weed, grow weed, process weed, and sell weed, and transport weed, and administer weed. Now that's interesting to me, because that sounds to me as if a dispensary or treatment center in Florida couldn't ban on-site consumption. Is that possible? Am I right on that? Again, I'm no attorney, but I read a lot of these bills. And the way I'm reading that, if a medical marijuana treatment center is an entity that administers marijuana and products containing marijuana, could a medical marijuana treatment center be a restaurant that has edibles or a deli that has edibles? I think so. Could be wrong. We'll find out at the Florida Marijuana Conference. I'll ask these questions. They say a caregiver has to be 21, assists with the qualifying patient's medical use of marijuana, has a caregiver ID card, can assist no more than 5 qualifying patients at a time, can serve as a personal caregiver. A hospice or nursing facility employee can only serve 5 at a time. And here's a bummer. Personal caregivers are prohibited from consuming marijuana obtained for the personal medical use by the qualifying patient. Yeah, no such law in Oregon. Physicians, qualifying patient, person who's been diagnosed to have a debilitating medical condition, which we already defined earlier, who has a physician certification and a qualifying patient card. If the department doesn't get a card within 9 months, then the certification is the card. So it protects them from arrest and all that. So the way I read this is that, no, you can't grow at home. It doesn't say the limitations of how much marijuana someone might have that would be presumed to be medical use. However, I do think the department shall issue reasonable regulations necessary for the implementation and enforcement of this section. So, the purpose of the regulations is to ensure the availability and safe use of medical marijuana by qualifying patients. It's the duty of the department to promulgate regulations in a timely fashion, no later than 6 months after the effective date. They have to get their stuff together for issuing cards, caregiver cards, registering treatment centers, and a regulation that defines the amount of marijuana that could reasonably be presumed to be an adequate supply for qualifying patients' medical use based on the best available evidence. This presumption as to quantity may be overcome with evidence of a particular qualifying patient's appropriate medical use. So, sounds to me as if the department gets to write regulations that say how many ounces would qualify as medical use, but if you can prove that you need more, you can have more. Again, I'm no lawyer. I just know a lot of them. So that's what Florida is looking like to me. And if the department does not issue these regulations or ID cards or registering dispensaries within the 6 months, any Florida citizen shall have standing to seek judicial relief to compel compliance with the department's constitutional duties. Hot damn. So no home grow in Florida. But sounds like something that would develop into a very expansive dispensary system. Although I suppose the department gets to set the regulations as to how many dispensaries, what hoops they have to jump through. But there you go. That's what I know about the Florida Amendment. Just looked it up. Now, speaking of courts, lawsuits and stuff, here's one from my birth state of Idaho. Now, there's a citizen, Darian Rosine, who is suing the state of Idaho State Police, because as he crossed into Idaho on I-84 in January of 2013, he was pulled over by Idaho State Trooper Justin Klitsch, and pressed by Klitsch to allow a search of his vehicle for drugs, which he refused. Officer, I don't consent to any searches of my car. Rosine was detained and his vehicle was searched for hours before he was allowed to go. Nothing illegal was found. His lawsuit charges numerous violations of his constitutional rights, along with discriminatory and selective treatment by profiling. He had Colorado plates and a Washington driver's license. Both states have legalized marijuana, while Idaho has not. Well, here's the development. The Idaho State Police, and being represented, of course, by the Attorney General, State of Idaho, is arguing that they can't be sued over license plate profiling because of the state's sovereign immunity under the 11th Amendment. The 11th Amendment grants states sovereign immunity from being sued for monetary damages. But nevertheless, lawsuits that charge constitutional violations generally go forward. So the Fruitland Police and the Payette County Sheriff's Department have all asked the court to dismiss Rosine's suit against the agencies on the basis that neither is an entity subject to suit. Does that frighten anybody? This idea that we can have a state police agency immune from lawsuits for wrongdoing and violations of our constitutional rights? We will be following this case in great detail on the Russ Belville Show, being it's something from my home state. I'll get a lot of home state newspaper stuff on that. And an expert on constitutional law in federal courts said, quote, "It does seem to me that there's a serious issue here. It's one of the many issues that arises with Idaho starting to be surrounded by states that have legalized marijuana," end quote. Yeah, and this immunity that cops have, this doctrine is called qualified immunity, if I remember it correctly. And what it says is basically, it's not enough for a cop to violate your rights. Your rights have to be, quote, well established. Well established. And there has to be clear evidence, like this really high bar that has to be cleared in court before you can show that a cop was purposefully, willfully, and knowingly violating your rights in a way extra to his duties as a cop. Okay, so there's, all sorts of excuses and exclusions and exceptions they get for violating our rights in the course of doing their duty, right? For example, just to toss the basic one out there, right? You have a right not to have cops break down your door, but if they can plainly see through the plate glass window that you're about to kill someone, well, of course, they can violate your Fourth Amendment right and break down the door. And this is, part of what we have to deal with in this war. And one of the things that bothered me sometimes, bothered me a lot because I worked for Normal and I had to hear this stupid conspiracy theory about lawyers. Oh, they don't want it really legalized. They want incrementalism because then there'll be more laws and then they can make more money. And it's all a conspiracy. They should be really free and, like tomatoes or dandelions, and everybody can grow as much as they want and sell as much as they want to anyone they want. There's no interference. There's no taxes. We let all the pot prisoners free. Yay, 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 kumbaya. We'll talk more about that when we come back and the role lawyers play in this war. And why, folks, they're on our side. At least the defense ones are. Be right back. Got another segment. Stick around.
We'll be right back after these messages from our 420 friendly sponsors. Support these advertisers because their ad money goes straight to the Russ Belville Show. You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Marijuana and alcohol are the two most popular recreational drugs in America. Marijuana smoking is non-toxic, relatively safe, and has a low risk of dependence. Alcohol drinking is potentially fatal, dangerous to society, and is quite addictive. Marijuana is safer, so why are we driving people to drink? That's the question of the new book, Marijuana is Safer, So Why Are We Driving People to Drink? By Paul Armentano, Mason Tvert, and Steve Fox. Visit Amazon.com or ChelseaGreen.com today to order your copy of Marijuana is Safer, or visit marijuanaissafer.com. Did you miss your favorite 420radio.org show during its regular airtime? Don't worry, you can catch the replay this weekend on 420radio.org. Visit our schedule page for more information.
Ever wonder how often to change your bong water? The most effective method for baking pot brownies? The best destinations for a ganja getaway? How to hide herb in your car? Whether to grow your own? How precisely to legalize it? Or how something as wonderful as marijuana ever got to be illegal in the first place? Finally, you can find all these answers and much more in the official High Times Pot Smoker's Handbook, featuring 420 things to do when you're stoned. Since 1974, High Times magazine has covered marijuana in all its aspects and wonders, from cultivation to legalization to the herb's enduring and exalted place in popular culture. Packed with inside information, the official High Times Pot Smoker's Handbook rolls all of this collected wisdom together into a single indispensable ganja guide, including an entertaining look at marijuana's history, profiles of herb-friendly travel destinations and festivals, favorite potluck recipes from the High Times staff, smoking skills, advocacy and activism, essential marijuana movies and songs, profiles of famous cannabis strains, comprehensive growing information, celebrity endorsements, and much more. This is truly, finally, the ultimate guide to green living.
Welcome back, 49 after the hour here at Toker Talk Radio on a beautiful, beautiful spring day here in Portland, Oregon. I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us. We got some magnified bud up there. That's some Webster bud up there. It's when you can't get the Gary Coleman bud, you get the Webster bud. And a nice magnified shot of that. Hope you like it. We're talking about lawyers before we went to break, and Talked to my lawyer today. 2 weeks later, it's 2 weeks to the day now. 2 weeks ago at this time, I was sitting in the box. Actually, I was out of jail at this time getting bail for that other guy. And it's been 2 weeks now. Still haven't been charged. Still hasn't come up in the judicial court. Still hasn't been filed by the state highway patrol. So don't know nothing yet. But asked around about, this lawyer who's helping me out, how much is this going to cost? Well, so far, up to now, minimum, it's going to be $750. Now, the maximum fine for possession of marijuana, of a tiny, tiny amount of marijuana in the state of Utah is $1,000. My bail was $1,166, which I paid in cash. So the bail was more than the fine could be. The lawyer is probably going to cost me more than the fine could be. See, this is something, when Kevin Sabatini says, nobody's doing serious time for marijuana possession. Okay. But people are sitting on the side of the road for 2 to 4 hours while cops go through all their stuff, and they are getting handcuffed and put in the back of cars, and they are getting taken to a holding cell where they have to sit for another hour or two, and they are getting booked and fingerprint and put into the system, and they are having to hire lawyers and spend money on bail, and they are having to take time to go fly back across to a state where they were arrested just to show up for a hearing that might take 5 or 10 minutes, and then have to fly back or get a hotel room in between or whatever you might do. By the time you're done with this thing may cost you $5,000 for something that the crime was maximum $1,000. It's just sad. It's just ridiculous. And I have it better than most in that I know good lawyers and I get good rates. So, your mileage may vary in this situation. And for what? I had a detractor on Twitter, at Catholic Lisa, or Lisa Catholic, one or the other, who, a Catholic from Utah, I know. But anyway, she was castigating me and was glad that I got arrested because, she cares about keeping drugs away from the children. As if I've ever given drugs to children. As if that's my gig. I don't want to have drugs around kids. I'm the guy who wants it legalized and regulated and put behind the counter and IDs checked. In fact, there's some younger people that don't like me so much because, I'm all for the 21 age and they think it should be 18, which actually I think it should be 18 too. I just don't think that's politically possible yet. But, I take a hit from that now and then. Anyway, let me get off that topic for just a second. Because there's another topic out there. And this was, I got this off the 7 News in Denver. State group debating THC levels in retail marijuana products for the edibles, right? And right now their law is that a serving of edible is 10 milligrams, right, of THC. But then the maximum number of servings that you can have is 10. Now, this is a problem even outside of edibles, even in just the real world, right? Did you know when you got that 20-ounce bottle of soda that when you drank it, it was like 2 2/3 servings, right? So when you looked at the calories on it and it said 220, what you drank was really more like 500, right? This happens all the time. Like candy bars, there's a 2 servings. That candy bar is 2 servings. Yeah, sure it is. The pint of Haagen-Dazs, right? 8 servings. Come on, yeah, sure it is, right? So yeah, this is, most people have no idea what their serving size is when we're talking about just food. Now we're talking about putting weed into it. 10 milligrams of THC. What does that mean to you? The kid that allegedly jumped off the hotel balcony there, they say he jumped off the balcony and died, had consumed a 65 milligram cookie. Well, is 65 milligrams, is that a lot? See, a lot of people don't really have any idea what this is. And this is exacerbated by the fact that when you get to Denver, let's say you're a tourist, you're coming from Oklahoma, wherever, Kansas, whatever. You get to Denver, maybe you've never smoked. You're not a smoker. You don't like smoking. Or you're at a hotel that's non-smoking and you can't smoke in public and you're new and you're a tourist. Maybe you don't know where there's, lounges or bars or tours where you can smoke. So maybe you choose an edible instead. Now, you haven't smoked a joint. You've never smoked a joint in your life, or maybe you did 30 years ago. Now you've got a brownie in front of you, and how are you supposed to know that that's a brownie that's, well, it's labeled, right? It's going to say that it's, it contains 60 milligrams or whatever. But how do you know what 60 milligrams means? Is that a lot of milligrams? Is that too few? So here at Toker Talk Radio, we like to educate people. And I found this great page from pureanalytics.net. There's a blog post they wrote in 2011 about cannabis ingestibles and edibles. And 2 points they bring up is that about the activation of cannabinoids present in an ingestible, in a medible, and the intoxicating effects of THC are magnified 10 times when ingested versus inhaled. We'll get to that second form in a second. Marijuana in its natural form, like what you're seeing on the screen there, have an acid form of THC and CBD. So that is the THC and CBD that are on the plant right there are actually THCA and CBDA. Now, they may have some properties on their own, but they're not yet THC or CBD. In fact, THCA is non-psychoactive. Now, in order to convert THCA and CBDA to THC and CBD, you heat them up. Generally, you heat it up. Now, normally, people do that when they're smoking, when you apply a flame to it. In fact, you apply a flame to it, you're actually carbonizing most of the THCA and CBDA. Maybe getting 30% of the THC and much less of the CBD through flame. Vaporization, where you can control the exact level of heat, you're going to have a much better conversion of THCA and CBDA to THC and CBD. So, this is where when they make Medibles, they talk about this decarboxylating the THC. This is where they'll heat the cannabis at 212 Fahrenheit for about 90 minutes to activate the THC, to do the full conversion, right? THCA plus heat equals THC. But are all kitchens equally doing that at the same levels? Are they as successful at the 90-minute process, right? So there may be a lot of variability there. But the second consideration is that when you inhale THC, the THC is meant to go straight to the bloodstream and is active THC. You got delta 9 THC is what we get. So when you smoke pot, you're high on delta 9. But when you ingest THC, it goes through your guts and it's converted to a different substance that's called 11-hydroxy THC, not delta 9. 11-hydroxy is 10 times more psychoactive than delta 9. So, if you're used to smoking a joint and the high you get off a full joint and someone says, yeah, well, this has as much brownie, has as much in it as a full joint does, and you eat that, but then eating it makes it 10 times stronger, that's like you just smoked 10 joints. So here's a guide they give you. They say it may be helpful to people who prefer ingestibles to consider their dosage in smoking equivalents. For example, if a normal amount of inhaled cannabis for you is 0.5 grams, like a half a gram, then 0.05 grams of ingested plant material of the same potency might be about the same level. In other words, divide by 10. So if you're the kind of person who smokes a half a gram is 500 milligrams, right? Do your metric system, right? 500 milligrams. Then 50 milligrams of plant material at the same potency might have the same effect on you. If you're the kind of person who smokes a puff off a joint and gets high, you have to consider that maybe that's 0.1 gram. And so 1/10 of that would be 10 milligrams, and that would be the one serving, the 10 milligram one serving of THC. Just keep in mind, ingestibles take longer to come on, take 45 minutes to an hour to come on. And when you try them, do the rat test. Eat a little and wait an hour. Eat a little more and wait a little longer. Find out where your level is first. Don't jump into the newly legal marijuana world scarfing down brownies and cookies. Thanks for joining us, folks. I'm Radical Russ. Stay tuned. 8 p.m. for Big Daddy Fink's Funky Roller Rink. Jorge Cervantes is next. Until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it,